Jake Paul. That's August 29th on a Sunday.
On a Sunday?
On a Sunday.
That's weird.
So it seems like between fighting Nate Robinson and Ben Askren, Jake Paul wasn't really getting any respect from the fighting world.
Why would you?
However, going into this fight with Tyron, it seems like he's finally starting to get some respect. So he actually, for this fight, he actually comes in as the betting favorite.
Not surprised.
Slightly, yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you think changed, like, objectively speaking? And, like, is it crazy that Jake Paul's the favorite going into this?
I kind of think he's going to win, man. It's weird because I know Tyron's, like, a reputable name. He's a big name in the sport, but is he really a boxer? Like,
No, he's definitely not a boxer. But with that being said, we know he can knock someone out.
Yeah, he's a power puncher. He's got a right hand.
Yeah.
But I feel like Jake Paul's, first of all, he has tons of money. He's probably training with the best, like, guys in the world. He's got high level training.
Yeah.
And the confidence, I think, is a factor because, like, I was watching some of this interview stuff, and Tyron, like, I think after his losses in the UFC, like, I don't see any confidence in the guy, like.
No, I'm with you, and I think that his last UFC fight against Vicente Luque, I kind of think that took it out of him. He came into that fight, he came out guns blazing, he rocked Luque, and then he just charges him, and then Luque catches him, recovers nicely, gets it done in the first round, and I think that's kind of almost the last straw for Tyron's confidence, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think you were starting to say earlier, even, I don't know if you watched any of the pressers, but he didn't really seem like he had all that much confidence. There were situations where Jake Paul was like, he's like, all right, let's bet our purses on this. And I mean, if you're Woodley, you're not doing that.
No.
You haven't made that much money in the UFC. But there was another moment where he's like, Jake Paul was like, okay, the loser of this fight has to get I love the winner. So like Tyron Woodley would have to get I love Jake Paul tattooed on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he, I don't know, he seemed a little bit like taken aback, like hesitant. He's like,
Yeah.
He's like, what you think? Like, he just asked the crowd. I don't know, there were a few moments where he just kind of, I don't know, he seemed
I think
a little off.
I think Jake basically, like, pressured him into making that bet because he would have looked, if he didn't make that bet, it's like, oh, you don't think you're gonna win? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, you have no confidence. So he basically got pressured into making a stupid bet with Jake Paul, which is kind of funny, to be honest.
A little bit, yeah.
Jake Paul's getting his head. Do you think he's actually gonna get that tattoo? Like, he shook hands with it, so.
I don't know. I was gonna ask you that. I have that in my notes right here, but I think he'll kind of have to. Like, the Jake Paul said in an interview with MMA Fighting recently, he was like, "Yeah, so I'm bringing a tattoo artist to the fight."
Right there and then.
Literally, like, you can't leave the ring. I got the
Tyron-
tattoo artist here.
Tyron gets knocked out. The guy just gets in there and starts tatting him.
he's still passed out.
Wakes
He's
up.
like, "What are you doing?" Yeah, I think you kind of have to though.
Yeah, fuck. But if Jake Paul wins, like, cause his previous wins don't really, like, I don't give him, oh, you knocked out Ben Askren, like, good for you. He's in boxing. Nate Robinson, was he a basketball player? Like,
Yeah.
Who cares, man? So at least Tyron's a real test for him. We'll see what he can actually do in there. Obviously, Tyron has much better boxing than Nate Robinson and Ben Askren.
Oh yeah.
But, like, that being said, he's still not a boxer, so.
But Tyron Woodley is I think he's a real test, man. Because, I mean, all that aside, he has big knockouts. And I think the biggest thing is experience, too. He's been in a lot of fights. And he's gone 5 rounds a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we know he has the cardio. Like I said, he's been in those fights. And Jake Paul, like, how much fighting time does Jake Paul has? He has, like, one fight that went, like, a few rounds, but, like, his last 2 fights ended, I mean, Ben Askren ended, like, seconds in, and Nate Robinson should have ended seconds in because they should have stopped it after the first time he knocked him down. Like, he was, like, wobbled for the rest of the fight. So, I mean, Tyron Woodley's been deep into those fights with guys like Wonder Boy and stuff. And obviously it's different because he like he works in his striking with his takedown, so that's part of what made him so lethal in his prime in the UFC, because you had to worry about those takedowns and he would work it in with his striking. But he has been there with like elite strikers, man, and he's knocked out elite strikers.
That's what gives me hope, like watching his fights with Wonder Boy, who's like such a technical fighter, because like I don't know if you can really just rely on your knockout power in boxing, because it's a technical sport, right? So it does give me a bit of hope that he has had those fights, and he but I think it's mostly just the confidence thing here. Like, I don't know though. I'm interested to see how it goes. I'm really interested to see what Jake Paul can actually do in there, because he's talking all this shit about, oh, I'm gonna fight Canelo. Like, okay, well, if you can't even beat Tyron Woodley in a boxing match, how do you think you're gonna fight Canelo, the greatest boxer that there is right now?
But going back to what you said, Tyron's lack of confidence gives you confidence in Jake Paul?
A little bit, because he seems extremely confident.
He does.
He doesn't seem worried at all. He's trying to bet his purse, getting tattoos, all this and that. Plus, like, I don't know what Tyron's financial situation is. I know Jake Paul is not worried about money at all. No. Tyron, I don't know what he's doing. He hasn't fought in a while. Maybe he needs this money. Like,
it's possible.
Yeah.
He said, he's like, this purse is bigger than any purse I've had in the UFC ever.
That's just depressing, man.
I know it is.
That's sad.
Yeah, but I mean, like, for all the shit people talk about Jake Paul, like, if you compare him to a guy like Canelo, and I'm not, you know how many fights it took Canelo to fight someone who had a winning record? Guess.
Did it take a lot? Like
13 fights.
What?
Yeah. So he didn't fight a guy with a winning record until his 13th fight.
That's weird.
Yeah. I mean, when they have potential stars, though, they really, like, the first guys they're fighting are shit. Like, he's probably fighting his Starbucks server, man. Like, when they're building these stars, they don't fight, like, a legit good boxer until, like, a little while until they're built. And, I mean, Jake Paul obviously hasn't fought a legit boxer yet, obviously. And I wouldn't even consider Tyron Woodley a legit boxer, but I think for, like, his fourth fight, this is, like, legitimate competition, and honestly, I respect the hell out of him for that.
Yeah, me too. When is that fight? It's coming up really soon, right?
Yeah, so today is it's August 22nd, so that fight is a week from today, actually.
On a Sunday?
On a Sunday, yeah.
Okay.
A little bit weird. I'm not exactly sure why they did that, but I mean, it is what it is.
So next weekend we got the boxing fight between Jake Paul and Tyron on Sunday, and then the UFC fight night between Chikadze and Barboza on Saturday.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, so we got some fights next weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
So what do you think I mean, we kind of discussed it. What do you think the general narrative is going into this Jake Paul, Tyron Woodley fight?
Like, what do you mean the general narrative? Like, who do you, like, who's, like, favorited? And
what's the question going in?
I think it's kind of like, let's see what Jake Paul's got, because this is his most legit test so far, and we're going to see how good he actually is against Tyron. That's what I think. Yeah. And on Tyron's side, we're going to see if Tyron can compete in this sport, because he's saying he wants to, this isn't just like a one-time thing for him. He's saying he wants to continue boxing and have a career in it after. Mm-hmm. And you can't really do that if you lose to a guy like Jake Paul.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can, but it's not a good look, really, because he's not even really like a professional boxer. Like,
no, I agree with you. I think, we talked about Tyron Woodley's confidence. I think if he loses to Jake Paul, his confidence will be shot.
Oh yeah, he's probably gonna have to go back to making terrible rap music or whatever after that. Like, I don't even know.
That was a shot straight to the jugular.
Yeah, well, that's sorry, Tyron.
Don't talk about the rap music, man.
It's pretty bad. I don't know if you heard it.
We're not gonna go there.
They thought he could be like a famous rapper or something.
What are your thoughts on just Jake Paul in general coming into the boxing world?
Ooh, people were throwing a lot of shade at him at first, but it seems like out of like the MMA community and people, like, it seems like he's gaining some respect, and people are saying, okay, maybe this guy is actually not that bad. Maybe he can hang in there. And that's what I'm saying. This fight is going to be the deciding factor. We're going to see if he can hang in there with Tyron. Tyron was like a 5 or 6 time UFC champ.
Yeah, he's definitely like a top 5 welterweight of all time.
A win over Tyron is actually extremely impressive.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, I honestly, like, I'll just be straight up. I'm almost gonna say I'm like a Jake Paul fan now, just based on the way he's come into boxing. Like, I think he's taking it very seriously. Like, we saw actually most you probably didn't see based on the pay-per-view numbers, the like TikTokers versus boxers fight, and those guys did not take it seriously. Like, those guys, they saw Jake Paul come in and he almost kind of lit the world on fire a little bit, and they're like, I want to do that too. Like, you look at a guy like Bryce Hall, and he's like, I'm a fighter. I've been in over 40 street fights, and then he goes in there and he like, I'm assuming you didn't watch that fight because you like real fighting, but they looked awful, man. They looked so bad, and like Jake Paul and Logan Paul for that matter, you can tell they're both like really committed. You can tell how committed Jake Paul is to fighting, and you can tell, I mean, even despite the amount of shit he talks, he like really respects the sport of boxing in general.
Honestly, he's growing on me. At first, I was like, screw this guy, but I like his attitude. I like the way he carries himself, and I like how serious he is about it too, because he's not just playing around trying to get a random payday. Yeah. He's actually trying to do something in this sport, and the way those guys got there is really weird. Like,
it is.
It's not like he was training and just working his up. He just was a YouTuber who called somebody out. Next thing you know, he's fighting some big UFC stars. He's calling out Canelo. He's doing all this stuff. So I respect him for it.
Me too. And I don't even have a problem with his come up, man. Like, I hear all these people complaining about it. They're like, I've been boxing for this long and I've been grinding in the gym, and it's like, cool, dude, I respect you, but like, this dude has been grinding on YouTube. Like, say what you want to say, but he has gotten there. He built the hype for himself beforehand, and if you're a guy in the UFC, you're probably looking at it right now, you're like, damn it, like, why didn't I just start, like, why didn't I create a YouTube channel like a while ago and start building an audience for myself? Because I could be in a position like Jake Paul's in, where he built the audience first, and now he's committing to the sport.
Yeah.
And the other thing is too with Jake Paul, like, in some scenarios, like with the presser against Ben Askren, I almost see him as kind of like a Colby Covington type character, where I don't agree with a lot of the stuff that Colby says, but he's like, he's just that. He's a WWE type character.
Right, yeah. I can see it.
There's a little bit of that with Jake Paul.
Yeah, definitely. And it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm interested to see what happens. I'm gaining respect for Jake Paul, and it is like, I don't know, it's really weird, but yeah, I'm just interested to see what happens and where it goes from here.
Yeah, me too, man. This will be a very interesting fight. I think it's like a crossroads for Jake Paul too, because I think they wrote up the contract really well. So if he loses, they get a rematch immediately.
Okay.
But I mean, if he can win this fight, like, I think he gets real consideration from some like valid fighters. So I could see like a Diaz brother wanting to fight him. I mean, if they could get out of their contractual obligations with the UFC, or even like a McGregor,
that would be
again
weird.
There's UFC implications there, so it's difficult. But I think a win makes him a lot more legit.
Well, and I know that it's funny, the back and forth between Jake Paul and Dana White is pretty funny, because Jake Paul is basically just trying to expose him for not paying his fighters. Yeah. And it's ridiculous how Tyron said he's making more money in this Jake Paul fight than he's made out of any of his UFC fights. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is, like, why do these guys are fighting to make money, right? And if Jake Paul isn't gonna make them money, then that's what they're gonna do. But yeah, I don't know if Dana is necessarily, because UFC fighters who are under contract with the UFC and Dana White, he is allowed to decide if they can fight or not. So he's probably not gonna let a lot of his UFC fighters just go and box Jake Paul. Yeah. Because he doesn't like Jake Paul, first of all, and I don't know if he really likes his fighters going outside the promotion to get more money. Like,
no, he doesn't.
yeah.
That's been like a common theme with Dana White.
Yeah.
Like some guys he'll let out, but a lot of guys he won't, right? Like we talked about GSP recently. He really wanted to fight Oscar De La Hoya, and the reason that didn't happen is because Dana didn't let him, because technically he's still under contract. So he said it's about a year or maybe 2 years. At that point he'll be out of contract. But yeah, I mean, Dana White isn't letting a lot of these guys go, right?
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is weird. Like, it's not like GSP's ever gonna fight in the UFC again. Why does Dana White care what he does? Like,
yeah, I know. I think he's worried that if GSP loses, it would kind of taint the UFC's reputation a little bit, because Oscar, back in the day, Golden Boy is like an all-time boxing great, but Oscar De La Hoya at, I don't know, how old is he now, like 50 or something, doing a bunch of coke.
is he?
Yeah, like,
I know Dana White doesn't like him.
no,
He's talking shit about him.
and it's honestly, it's not a good look for the UFC if GSP were to fight and lose against Oscar.
I really don't think he would, though.
You don't think so?
Well, I guess I
Hard to
haven't.
say.
I haven't been following Oscar that much, but just I know, even though GSP's not fighting, I know he still trains a lot. He's still in incredible shape. He's still a very good athlete. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the question, right? Because Oscar De La Hoya is like clearly the prime in them, both in their prime. Oscar is clearly the better boxer, but he's a little older, and also we don't know how good of shape he's in. And GSP is like, he loves training. He's still training, and I don't know if you follow him on Instagram or whatever. He's jacked.
Oh yeah, he's been training his entire life, like you said.
Yeah.
I don't know how long ago Oscar retired, but if he's just been sitting around doing coke and like shit like that, like
Well, it's hard to know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, but and I'm like obviously a GSP fan, so there's always a bit of bias in there, like based on who I just want to win. I might be leaning slightly towards them, but yeah.
It is interesting though, going back to the contractual obligation with the UFC. So Chad Mendes, he actually just signed with BKFC.
Okay.
And so that's like the bare knuckle fighting championship. So he actually, I'm pretty sure he would have still been under contract with the UFC. So Dana White could have just prevented that from happening if he had wanted to. I guess he knows Chad Mendes probably isn't really interested in fighting in the UFC down the road. But I mean, Chad Mendes made it pretty high up the ranks. I believe he was a bantam? No. Was he I think he was a featherweight champ.
He was featherweight when
Conor
fought him, yeah. So yeah.
No, but I mean, that's Dana actually had a say in that, and he let him go. I mean, part of it could potentially be the fact that, I mean, I'm not sure what the legal grounds are around that, but I mean, if you just don't let your fighters fight for other organizations, it could kind of seem like you're monopolizing. I don't want to talk any more about that because I'm going to sound like more of a moron than I already sound like, but I believe there are legal reasons around that.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know all the ins and outs.
No, me either. But Vitor versus Oscar is going to be fun.
Yeah, if Vitor's on roids, it'll be fun.
I think he's going to be
He's actually going to be on roids.
Probably.
Sure. And then, who else was fighting on that card?
So, Tito Ortiz versus Anderson Silva as well.
Yeah, I really don't like Tito, so let's go Silva. But
Dude.
I feel like everybody on that card is going to be on steroids.
Dude, Silva is going to murk Tito Ortiz. The way he just beat Cesar Chavez Jr., who is 35 and a former boxing champ, was ridiculous. He looked so good. His striking looked amazing. There's no way he does not absolutely eat Tito Ortiz's children. Tito isn't even necessarily known for being a striker. And I mean, I don't hate the guy. I'm not a fan. I'm happy he's probably making a nice paycheck from this, but Anderson Silva is going to do him dirty in this fight. I'm calling it now.
Tito's a friggin' idiot, man. I really don't like him, but
he played the character though. He's
Yeah, it's a character for sure. He was
Yeah.
he was acting, but yeah.
Where do you feel like this like celebrity fighting and like MMA fighters versus boxing like mix and match type climate going on right now? Like where do you feel like this goes in the future?
It seems to be like taking off a bit. I think
Seems like it.
we're gonna keep seeing it. I feel like because it's making more money, man. If like an MMA fighter can go and fight some celebrity and make a bigger payday than they would in the UFC, like why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Like I think we're gonna see it more because all these guys want to fight people in the UFC, like Jake Paul.
Mm-hmm. So why wouldn't you? I mean, you're at the end of the day, you're a prize fighter.
Mm-hmm.
You fight people for the highest prize you can get.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, do you mind seeing it take off? Are you happy about that? Do you feel like it's taking money away from the UFC or boxing? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not necessarily mad at it. It is weird how these fights make more money than a UFC fight would. I don't like that because it doesn't look good on the UFC, right? These guys should be making more money than these random celebrity fights, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think these are interesting. I think you do too. I don't necessarily think it's taking money away, but it does at the same time when I see that like an event, like a celebrity boxing match gets like better pay-per-view numbers than like a UFC card, makes me a little depressed, a little bit worried about humanity.
Yeah, but it is different because like if Floyd's fighting, obviously it's going to be a huge pay-per-view. I guess we'll see what kind of numbers Tyron and Jake does because obviously Tyron doesn't have the same following that Floyd Mayweather does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everybody's tuning in to see Floyd. Maybe like UFC fans are tuning in to see Tyron. You know what I mean?
I think this one's gonna do well.
Yeah.
I think it's gonna do well. I mean, Jake Paul, he has some knockouts to his name now, and Tyron Woodley. Like, if you knew anything about fighting prior to the Ben Askren fight, you probably knew Ben Askren wasn't gonna win. Obviously, we didn't know going in that he was gonna not really train all that much, come in looking like a bag of milk.
Yeah.
But like, he's never been a striker. I'm not even trying to talk shit about Ben Askren. He was an elite wrestler, and he had a really good MMA career. But he was like the furthest thing you could find in mixed martial arts from a striker.
He literally said like, yeah, I knew I was gonna lose. It was a payday. I didn't give a shit.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Which isn't really the attitude you want to have or you want to see people have.
Yeah.
Because, like, I want to see people who are motivated to win. Like,
Of course.
That's what makes a good fight. But, yeah.
So, let's say Jake Paul wins this fight, which I think he will, and you think he will as well, I believe.
Yep.
What do you think is next for him? So, his hit list is Canelo, Nader Nick Diaz, Kamaru Usman, Tommy Fury, who's that's Fury's half brother, I believe.
Okay.
So Tyson Fury's half brother, Conor McGregor, KSI, who's another YouTuber. I'm not sure if you know KSI.
Did Logan fight him?
Logan fought him twice, yeah. And then Gervonta Davis, and then Logan Paul at the bottom with a question mark. Who do you think's next?
Well, that's kind of tough because obviously he's not getting the Canelo fight right away. He has to make a way bigger name for himself in boxing before he can get that fight. And half of these guys are UFC fighters, which I don't think Dana White would even allow to fight him while they're under contract with him.
Agreed.
So maybe he can fight KSI, whoever that is, or Tommy Fury.
Yeah. No,
Gervonta Davis.
not Gervonta Davis.
I don't see him fighting his brother for a while either.
No.
If that happens, they're both gonna have to make a bigger name for themselves in the sport before that would ever happen. Because
I agree. I think if that happens, they'd leave it until the end. And I think, I don't know. I think they like train together. I think they like each other right now. So yeah. I don't think they really want to do it.
Well, they're definitely close. They're brothers. They're at each other's fights and each other's corners and stuff. So that would be weird if they fought each other actually.
So Canelo Not gonna happen. Jake Paul said his goal is to fight Canelo in the next 2 years, which seems kind of crazy to me. Nate or Nick Diaz, maybe. It's tough with the UFC. I could see maybe one of those guys getting out to fight him. We'll see. Kamaru Usman, no way. The UFC would not risk that. Tommy Fury, I think that's probably the most likely one. He's actually fighting on the undercard for this.
Okay.
And he's a boxer, but some of the guys he's fought, like it's kind of a Canelo early on type situation. And I'm not comparing him to Canelo. He's fought a lot of bums mostly. And he's fighting on the other undercard. He doesn't necessarily have like a big following in the US. Like I'd never heard of him prior to this list, but I did some research. He has like a big following in the UK from like a reality show.
Okay.
So that one maybe. Connor, no, not yet. KSI, maybe. That seems likely. KSI said he's like focusing on his music right now, which that's another YouTuber killing it, like low key. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna say Tommy Fury probably.
Yeah, I feel like definitely someone who's not under UFC contract anyway.
Yeah.
That makes the most sense. But yeah, we'll see what happens if he's got to beat Tyron, basically. I don't think Jake Paul can lose. He has to keep winning. He definitely has to keep winning.
Honestly, I don't think it's too bad if he loses this. He just has to win the next one.
Yeah. Or it has to be close at least. Like,
yeah.
If Tyron just knocks him out in one punch, and like, okay, yeah, we knew you sucked. Like,
yeah. No, he definitely loses some legitimacy. So a win for Tyron means an automatic rematch, but what about a loss? What do you think Tyron himself will do in that situation?
That's what I'm saying, because that's a huge blow to the confidence. Can't win in the UFC, can't win in boxing. Maybe he goes and tries to do another boxing fight, but it's like if you lose a boxing fight, you're a professional fighter fighting a YouTuber and you're going to lose to him. Like, who would even want to fight him after that?
Yeah, that definitely puts him in a tough scenario. And I mean, the next one, if he loses, if he finds another boxing match, it's not going to be anywhere close to the payday of this one. So I wouldn't be surprised if he retires and tries to take a different route if he does lose.
Yeah, that's very possible.